Good evening, Danvers, and welcome to our November 5th, 2019 Selectmen meeting. Gardner Trask, please lead us in the pledge.
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have an approval of the minutes of October 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. At this time, if there's anybody in the audience with new business that's not on the agenda, Mr. Nicholson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Nicholson, Precinct 8 Town Meeting Member. I just want to ask through you, Mr. Chairman, if I could have an update from our town engineer, who happens to be sitting in the audience this evening, about the pumping station at the end of Green Street that I've been waiting 65 years for to increase the water pressure in Precinct 8 for my constituents and myself.
So I don't think he's been here 65 years, but I will ask him if he has anything he can offer tonight or at a future date. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Steve.
Please introduce yourself for the folks at home, Steve.
Good evening, Steve King, Town Engineer. As an update for the Green Street Booster Station, we actually have the pump station on site. We're storing it. We have our crane coming in tomorrow to set the structure. And then we'll be actually putting the mechanicals and instrumentation together in the next several weeks. And then we should have it online by early December.
Good, thank you. You're welcome. Anyone else, new business? Mr. Crowley? Not, up, you gotta be up here.
I'm just wondering where the sound is.
Sound?
Sound, S-O-U-N-D.
Do we have that extra box?
Can I
Yeah,
ask
get that extra box for Mr. Crowley.
Larry here.
No, keep that. We have another one.
Okay.
We're gonna give you a fancy equipment.
An in-ear monitor.
Put something in your ear. Oh, yeah, we won't give it to you. You can sign it out. You ask, we respond. Anybody else that's not on the agenda? You're on the agenda. It's something new? Thank you.
Why is it so cold here?
No heat. It's too early in the season to turn the heat on. No heat. Put your jacket on. This is New England. No heat.
I think this gentleman in the suit jacket, in the black jacket, right?
I assume he's on the agenda.
Who tried to raise his hand?
In the black jacket, he's on the agenda. Straight ahead from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Gardner, anyways. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna go to number 3. The board will hear a request from Andrea Daly regarding naming rights for town buildings. Andrea, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you so much. Andrea Daly, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. I'm currently the chairperson for the committee to rename the Danvers Council on Aging to become the Wayne P. Marquis Community Center. And in the audience, we have our committee members. Some are absent, but most of them are here. The members on this committee are John Cohane, who's currently in Florida, Larry Crowley, Bill Nicholson, Alan Hartnett, Bill Bradstreet, Barbara Remen, Pam Parkinson, Joan George, Richard Trask, Lenny Marshall, Gail Eaton, and Jan Typett. And after I give my presentation, some of them may be wanting to speak. Again, good evening. We have been placed on your agenda tonight to discuss our application for the Danvers Council on Aging, located at 25 Stone Street, to be renamed the Wayne P. Marquis Community Center. Wayne Marquis retired from his position as town manager on October 3rd, 2014, having served 2 years as assistant town manager and 38 years as the town manager of Danvers. I don't think it's ever going to happen again. Very, very unusual individual to serve that long, and wherever you look in town, you see his stamp. Wayne Marquis retired again on October 3rd, 2014. The present Board of Selectmen consists of the same membership since Wayne's retirement, when a way of memorializing his name in his 40 years of exemplary service to the town was discussed on October 15th, 2014. The board at that time wanted to have general citizen input for ideas as to how to honor his name and his service to the town. 5 years have passed since that time, and no citizen or group have come forward with a proposal. Our group has taken this opportunity for the discussion to continue for this November 5th Board of Selectmen's meeting. Wayne was contacted at the beginning of our endeavor to partake in this project. Our group offered several choices to Wayne for his consideration to honor his legacy to the town. His final choice was that of the Danvers Senior Center. Pam Parkinson, director of the Senior Center, was contacted and conducted a staff meeting where a unanimous vote of approval was granted to rename the present center to become the Wayne P. Marquis Community Center. A letter from Pam Parkinson, I believe, was sent to this board attesting to this fact. Tonight, we are coming before your membership with our proposal in the hopes of a vote of approval. The Senior Center in Peabody was renamed after the mayor of Peabody to become the Peter A. Turigian Senior Center. So this request to rename our senior center is not without a history or precedent. We have included in our informational packet to you a list of the majority of accomplishments of Wayne P. Marquis in his tenure as town manager. They were done on time and on budget. Our committee has filed all of the necessary paperwork with the town of Danvers' new procedure, request for naming opportunity, and have had our application time-stamped and forwarded to this board, who are now empowered to make the final decision on our application. In closing, we thank you for your consideration for our proposal and look to a vote of approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. Do any of the members of your committee wish to say something at this
I
time?
believe there are some that would like to say something.
I'd like to hear from them now.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Please introduce yourself for the folks at home.
My name is Larry Crowley.
Thank you.
Good evening, lady and gentlemen. Thank you for considering our proposal to make the Senior Center the Wayne P. Marquis Community Center. As you all know, Wayne was our town manager for 38 years. He served with dignity,
patience, honor, loyalty, caring, integrity, vision, humility, and much more. Tonight, we'd like to ask you to name the Danvers Senior Center after Wayne, specifically the Wayne P. Marquis Community Center. He deserves this honor. I don't want to get into all the specifics that Andrea so well did, and but we all know that he put in like 38 plus years, and he was pretty much perfect all the way through. He handled everybody very well, and he did so much for our community. So I hope you see fit to name the senior center the community center. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Larry. Someone else? Bill?
Bill Bradstreet, town meeting member, precinct 1, retired town employee. I have nothing written down. I can only say that working for Wayne Marquis over the years was, I won't say always a pleasure, but a good job. We had discussions, didn't always agree, but I knew in his heart he had the town best interest. So I think it's a fitting reward for him to be, his name to be attached to the building. I certainly, as I say, we had our moments, but in the end, he was a good man.
Thank you, he still
And he
is.
is a good man.
Yes, thank you. Somebody else? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Nicholson, Precinct 8, town meeting member. The thing about Wayne is that he never quits. He retired. He has a place up in New Hampshire that they enjoy. But he continued on to serve the town in different ways even after retirement. He represents the town of Danvers for the VOC, the tech. He's on the board of that, and he's also on the board for the Community Action Committee in town that does a lot of great things for the citizens of the town. I've known Wayne since he was quite young when he first started as an intern from Salem State. And I think this is a great honor if we can bestow this upon him. And it certainly will be something worthwhile for the remainder of his years on this earth and for the citizens of Danvers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? Nope, all right, then we'll take questions from the board. Bill?
I don't know, questions. I had the honor of knowing Wayne since 1972 when he joined us on town meeting. Many people don't realize that he was a town meeting member before he was a town employee. As a college student, he and Teddy Spiliotis broke the barrier of people who were under 21 being town meeting members. We had a very good relationship over the years. I'll still remember the day that I had my weekly meeting with him. I happened to be the chairman the year he retired, and at the end of the meeting he said, "Oh, by the way, Bill, I've got another thing I want to tell you. I'm retiring." And we had never expected it to happen that year, so it was kind of interesting what we did. But I think this is very appropriate, and I think that we have a provision that we'll be talking about in a few moments that might be more engaging to the entire community.
Thank you. Gardner?
No secret that I support Wayne. I had when I served as a selectman, had when I served as a town meeting member. I think very highly of his abilities, and we need to keep talking about this as an honorarium, not a memorial. I don't want to talk about this as in a past tense. I will say that, you know, I want this conversation to continue. I support this. I think this is a great idea. However, I do have two questions, and I think that that's still a little bit outstanding in my mind. I did talk to one of the committee members, and they were kind enough to get the letter from Pam. One of my concerns is the fact that we are nationally accredited is a feather in the town's cap, a feather to the senior center, a feather to the town itself. I would want to hear if the accreditation would hold up for the next application. If the accreditation is for senior centers and not community centers, I just don't know the delineation. I think that was an important thing. The other is that there is a naming process for, and often it's based on someone would like to put a bench in memoriam or some other unnamed piece of property. One concern I do have is and I think that if we're going to talk about renaming a street or renaming a town building, that the conversation should be broader. It should continue. And I'm going to suggest that this may be something more appropriate for a warrant article that I would certainly help write and support for a town meeting. Whether it be the February special town meeting or the May town meeting, I think that where this is an asset that the town meeting members voted on to build with a specific name, and I think it would be just an opportunity for the town meeting itself to show what I would expect to be a lot of solid support for Wayne as well. I'm happy to say I support him. I'm happy to say I would work on the selectmen's warrant on this to make sure it got on the docket and put through. I think renaming a town building or a street has a little bit more broader, needs a little more broader conversation. Just my thoughts.
Thank you. David?
Thank you, Dan. I think that Gardner's comments make great sense. And I agree with everything he says about Wayne, who I've known since he was a kid, and I knew his mother and dad. So no question about the quality of the fellow. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also wholly support renaming the senior center after Wayne Marquis. And we have been talking about moving towards a broader use of the senior center as a community center. So that's a direction we're going in. I was very happy to see Pam's letter of endorsement. That was important to us. We didn't feel that we should be jumping in her territory without her full knowledge and understanding. So I'm happy to see that letter. And community center certainly makes sense. There seems to be some concern that it might affect the accreditation. I don't know. It'd be helpful to know that that won't affect the accreditation. My sense is it won't, but we don't know that at this time. But I wholly support the effort to go forwards, finalize the conversation, answer a few questions, and let us have special town meeting where the community at large can weigh in and show their support for the Wayne P. Marquis Community Center. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the board? Can we have a motion? Yes, excuse me, Mr. Crowley, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm rather disappointed. This is a new approach to things for the selectmen as far as going to a special town meeting. We've had the visitor center at the Endicott Park, the hay barn, or not the hay barn, the children's barnyard. We've had almost everything has gone strictly through the chairman and not having to collywobble through the whole thing and make it a big determination. I would wish that you would just fish or cut bait. You've got 3 votes there, maybe 4, and just get on with it.
So if I may, Mr. Crowley, by my sense, I count 2 votes. And then the motion would fail. So I
You
think
do
this is
count
the,
two?
I
just
can
counted
count.
3 there.
yeah, I think that if it went to a vote,
Okay.
it would be 2, a motion would fail. And how do I know that? I have a good sense of my board's thinking, and yes, we'll collywobble this to a special town meeting and accomplish what you want to accomplish at that time.
Okay.
Thank you. Andrea?
Andrea Daly, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. I want to thank the board for giving us the time. I know how long these meetings can be, and I applaud all of you for coming each and every time in order to do the town's business. This will probably be the first time in my lifetime that this would go in the direction of, I can see where you're coming from, Dan, because I get the sense too, and you're only operating with 4 members and not your full board. You don't have the 5th member of your board here. And there may be some concern, Gardner, I agree, that the accreditation may be something that we may want to consider. I'm a very patient person because 5 years ago, 5 years and a couple of months ago, I came with the idea of, I had other ideas for honoring Wayne. When you really just think about this, he was only 25 years old when he was given the responsibility. He just turned 26 of having a 5-year contract. Who in God's name, we're all here in this audience, maybe I'm being prejudiced, but you're tapping a 25-year-old kid out in the street on the shoulder to have to run a town. And he did it beyond anybody's imagination. So everywhere you look, anywhere you look, including this building that we're sitting in, he got the funds, millions of dollars to rehab it, so it became the town hall again. And it will outlive all of us. I'm not disappointed. I'm very hopeful that this will go forward. As I said, I'm very patient. 5 years ago, I tried to present something else, and I did not have the full complement of the board. And so the only thing that we have now to memorialize him is a plaque on the wall, and there's plaques on these walls here. So I felt that this was not enough. I have 12 strong men and women that that formed a committee, and each and every name that is on this committee, if you asked somebody on the street in Danvers, they would know that person's name, and that they would know how committed they are to Danvers. And I will not take this as a negative. I think that the thing that I'm mentioning is that, again, this is going to be a special town meeting. And at one time at town meeting, I asked, how much does it cost to run a town meeting? And it was $15,000.
So if I could clarify, I'm not asking for a special town meeting for this issue. What I'm saying is we have a special town meeting being scheduled for February. We also have our annual town meeting in May. Being supportive of this, I'd want to see it happen sooner than later, and I'm suggesting it be on that already scheduled special town meeting.
Thank you. Thank you
I'm
for
sorry if I was
clarifying that.
unclear.
It was unclear. I'm so sorry. I don't want to offend anybody. And this discussion, I hope, continues, because it has been 5 years, and it's remarkable that each and every one of you are still here.
I don't know how to take that.
I don't either.
Andrea, please, thank you very much for your efforts to bring this to our attention, to put together your committee, to find the appropriate building to name after Wayne. And again, you have my full support at special town meeting.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Thank you for your efforts.
So we're going to just await to see how the board votes, and it
We're
apparently.
going to
it's
vote.
be-
We have a motion.
So
So-
that it,
We have a
will it
motion to-
include this
I
as an item? This
We
would be-
haven't made the motion yet.
All right, so I'll be patient again.
Okay.
I hope it's not another 5
I'd
years.
like to make a motion and comment on it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move we direct the town manager to craft a selectman's warrant for the special town meeting already scheduled for February in support, to discuss the renaming of the senior center to the Wayne P. Marquis Community Center.
Second.
Discussion?
I want to be clear. I fully 100% support this. I want this to happen. This is important, a good, appropriate place for accolades. My concern was minimally about the accreditation. That's one thing, and if Pam's fine with that, however that pans out, that's fine. I just want to make sure everybody's cognizant of that. The other issue is, I want to say, I only learned about this whole thing, this recommendation, a week ago. I'm sure there are people, even in the audience or in the community, who would love to offer their support of this, but don't know about it. I respect every name on this committee and would follow their flag bearing on this one, 100%. I just want to make sure that we're addressing it in a manner where this building was approved by town meeting, built with town funds, with a specific name. I just want to make sure that we have enough time to make an informed decision. That's all. I want this to happen at the special town meeting in February. And we'll, like I said, fully support this, and ask that the town manager draft that as a selectman's warrant so that you don't have to go through any more effort of doing a citizen's petition. I think this is absolutely something in our wheelhouse. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you to your members. Number 4, the board is in receipt of an application by McCarthy Restoration, Sean McCarthy, manager, for permission to occupy the public way on Conan Street side of People's United Bank, 1 Conan Street, for repairs to the building at that location. Is there somebody here to speak to this? Please go to the microphone, introduce yourself. Mr. Clerk, is any paperwork available, and is it in order?
Mr. Chairman, at this point in time, we do have a bond in place for the proposed project. We do not have any dates, but as you're aware, we had, with Mr. McCarthy, we allowed him the ability to go up and inspect the building a few weeks ago, and he was very cooperative with the town departments. So at this point in time, the bond is in place for his intended work. No date specific at this point.
All right, thank you. Please continue, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, sirs. My name is Sean McCarthy. I'm the owner of McCarthy Restoration. I've been authorized by People's Bank to basically engage in repairs on the parapet along Conant Street. It seems that a member of the town noticed some concrete that was crumbling a few weeks ago, and I believe the building department informed People's Bank that that was the case. Since then, we have hired an engineer to go up and inspect the parapet visually. It seems that, it's fairly old and it's been deteriorating over time. So People's United Bank just feels that just for safety and well, to keep the building up to snuff, that we should go ahead and at least get up there and engage in some sort of repairs to make it right.
Okay. Mr. Town Manager, what is required of us? They made the application, we have the bond.
That's right. So because they'd be operating in the public way, it requires a vote of the Board of Selectmen. And as the clerk mentioned, all of the required paperwork is in order. We just, once we have work dates, we can communicate that out to the board.
Thank you. Any questions, David?
No, thank you, Dan. Have you done other work in Danvers, Sean?
Yes, I have, sir. Yep, mainly for People's Bank.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Bill?
My only concern is this, you said you were asking for 7 days to do this, is that right?
That was one on my letter.
That seems like an awful short period of time if you're gonna do something.
Well, there's two ways this can go. Either when we finally get up there and start chipping away some of that debris, if it's not very substantial, then I think we can make repairs in that time. It behooves us to do so only because of the closing weather. If it looks like it's going to be a bigger challenge, then we might have to rethink things and actually push maybe towards the springtime to actually make repairs. But right now, what we're really interested in doing is getting it and making sure that it's safe before the thaw freeze cycle starts to happen. Because if rain and snow starts getting in some of these cracks, we're just worried that we might have some more of that debris that may tumble down.
So if I may, you did some work, emergency work, did you not assess
Yes,
situation?
the engineer did assess the situation and found that, yeah, we should get a crew up there to basically start hammer drilling and, you know, whatever needs to come off. But it's difficult to know that until you're kind of in it, you know.
Okay, thank you. Gardner?
I just asked that the building inspector take into consideration some of our comments for other work where the scaffolding is wrapped so no one can climb that, and just the same conditions we set recently for Maple Street. I share Bill's concern. It's getting into the winter, you know, late fall, winter time. I don't want to constrain you by approving 6 days. Is it within our purview to increase that number, Mr. Chairman?
Well, is it specified a number of days? Because it's not on the
That
agenda.
was my specification, you know.
That is correct. That was his estimate for the specification.
Correct.
Right now, if the board saw fit to put dates, that's allowable and certainly within the purview of the board's action. But right now, it's to grant permission for this project to be done and
Okay.
set whatever parameters.
But it has no dates right now at all? No number of days and no dates?
There's nothing on the application
And
here.
the bond,
Okay,
right now, the bond is
Okay.
open-ended.
Open-ended, very good. Okay,
So then okay, then when it comes to motion, I'll make a motion.
okay, fine, I'm fine.
I make a motion, we approve the request as presented for scaffolding no more than 3 weeks, 21 days. If you determine that you need to do more repair work than that, then that gives you time to come back before the board.
We'd be happy to do that.
I just want to give you a little latitude.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
The second, David, thank you.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good
evening.
luck. A public hearing will be held on the application of Village Motors North, Inc., DBA North Shore Nissan and DBA Volvo Village, 24 Commonwealth Ave, Anthony Bartololi, CEO for Class 1 dealer's license at that location, previously known as Village Motor North, Inc., DBA Hyundai Village, DBA Volvo Village. So I'm very confused what kind of cars we have here. Somebody here to speak to that, please go to the microphone. And Mr. Clerk, I was going to call you and ask you to tell me what a Class 1 license is.
New and used cars.
Thank you. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Hi, Anthony Bartolotti, CEO of Village Motors North. And what we're looking to do is we've closed down our Hyundai store, and we're just looking to put in a Nissan store where the Hyundai store was. So we're really, I think it's more of a DBA change. We already have a Class 1 license, so I wasn't 100% sure why it said that, but so what we're looking to do is just, put Nissan in where Hyundai is.
Okay. Anything else we need to know? Hours of operation, same?
Haven't changed, yeah.
Nothing changes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, very good. Bill?
You're just changing from Korean cars to Chinese cars, Japanese cars, that's right?
Yes.
All set?
Yep.
David?
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gardner?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
All right. This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public with questions?
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none, thank you. What's the will of the board?
Make a motion that we pursue this application as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
A public hearing will be held on the application of Texas Roadhouse Holdings LLC, DBA Texas Roadhouse, 301 Newberry Street. John C. Morisco, manager, for a change of offices and directors at that location. Afternoon, evening?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Attorney Andrew Upton for Texas Roadhouse.
Welcome.
Thank you. Texas Roadhouse has removed 2 corporate officers at their corporate headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky. This is a mandated filing by the ABCC, which will have no impact on any aspect of the licensed premise here in Danvers or any impact on any restaurant in Massachusetts.
Okay. David?
Thank you, Dan. The same manager that's currently on the license will remain on the license.
Same manager, same menu, same hours, same floor plan.
Great.
No change, except a gentleman in an office in Kentucky will not be there anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Gardner?
No, I have no questions. This is one of the unfortunate, this is not a town regulation. This is this is a corporate filing, so I'm fine with this.
Bill?
No questions.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the public?
Move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. None? It's the will of the board.
I move we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None? Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Attorney.
very much.
A public hearing will be held on the application of SH Family MA LLC DBA Dumpling Garden, 75 High Street. Julie Yu, manager for common viculars license. Change of ownership at that location. The location was previously occupied by Happy Garden. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Good evening, Chairman and member of the board. My name is Derek Chan.
Welcome.
We just recently bought, the Happy Garden, and then we will change our name to the Dumpling Garden. We're basically serving, dumpling, and change the menu a little bit, and then, the operation hour is 11 to 9. So that's it. Thank you.
7 days a week.
7 days a week, and we are looking for the common bachelor license.
Thank you. Bill?
No questions.
Gardner?
I have no questions either.
David?
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
It's a public hearing. Anyone in the public, any questions?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you. What's the will of the board?
I move we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. Good luck.
Good luck. The board will hear from town engineer Stephen King about a thank you, of the town's borders. Say that again, Steve, for the folks at home.
Preambulation.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and board members. Steve King, Town Engineer. I'm here before you tonight. We received a letter to the Town Hall from Mr. John Dick regarding a preambulation of the town's bounds with our other member communities. That's Salem, Peabody, Middleton, Townsville, Wenham, and Beverly. This is actually a law, that's the legislation that's in place. Title 7, Chapter 42, Section 2. And it says, the boundary markers of every town shall be located, the marks thereon renewed, and the year located marked upon the face thereof, which bears the letter of the town locating its boundary once every 5 years. Based on our records, this hasn't been done since 1980. So we've been, Mr. Dick has graciously offered up his time, no heavy lifting, to assist us with this process of locating somewhat 22 town markers along the borders of the six other community members. And once and myself and my office will go out with him. We'll actually GIS and GPS track these locations now. We'll mark them, and then at your discretion, 2 board members or 2 designees that you may appoint can go out with the other town members, to the town markers, and then we kind of hold this little ceremony saying that this is the town marker, which we found, this is Danvers side, this is the other town side, and then it gets recorded with the clerk. Very ceremonial, good time.
Is there a special robe I have to wear?
I can make one for you. So obviously, like I said, there's no real heavy lifting. John has volunteered his time with us to help us do this process, and it would be good for our records to have this information and be able to locate these bounds, these survey markers. I'll take any questions that you guys may have.
Mr. Chairman, by my estimation, I think Wayne had been town manager for 2 years the last time this was done. The good news is we have not been paying penalties to the state for the past 39 years. With the advent of GIS and better records at the registry, I don't know that it has been as important as it was, a century ago to be walking the boundary, but it is laid out in statute, and it was very generous of Mr. Dick to offer to take this on in partnership with the engineering department.
And Mr. Dick, my appreciation, thank you for making the offer. Just a little story, I recently was involved in a transaction of a property in Amesbury, which was right on the Merrimack line. The property went through this property, so we had to find that boundary. And I wouldn't let these folks buy it till we found that property and were sure where their boundary was. And unfortunately for them, they're in Amesbury, but their septic was from Merrimack. There was a little, you really need to know where your property lines are, there's no doubt about it. So we appreciate that, and Stephen, if you're willing to go forwards with this, we appreciate that, and I would be interested in being involved.
Absolutely. It requires 2.
Okay.
I actually think that in 40 years, our fence viewers should earn their keep.
I was going to suggest that.
All right, anything you need from us, Mr. Town Manager?
I don't think so.
All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
for
Any
coming
comments
tonight.
from the committee? I can't let this major event pass without making a comment on this.
Oh, please.
Thank you. When I was first elected, I was charged by a town meeting member that we should be doing a perambulation because she was aware that it hadn't been done for quite a while. And actually, she just left the room a little while ago. It was another one of the events that Andrea got involved with. And then the last time that we talked about it, I was teaching civics at Danvers High School in 1998, 99, and we tried to pursue it, but it was deemed to be not an essential top priority to be done. But back in those days, it was my understanding that the selectmen had to go around the borders of the community every 5 years, but there was also intervening pubs that they could stop at in a way to enjoy the perambulation. And it's perambulation, just for those that are at home. And John, thank you very much. You're a worthy individual to go do that. I just hope you wear the proper attire when you're doing it.
Dan, may I?
The willow branches.
Thank you, Bill. David?
Comment, yes. Well, John worked for and with the town, I don't know, when I was young, which was a long time ago. And John is probably one of the most respected land surveyors, certainly in eastern Massachusetts, if not, New England. And he has offered to donate his time and services, and I think that is a really great gift to the town. And I think that the situation, I'm not going to try to say the word, is in excellent hands. And thank you very much, John. That's it.
Gardner?
No, I made my
Okay.
comment on the side.
So, Stephen, when will this start and finish?
I think that we've gotten your approval. We can start immediately now that the leaves are all gone. It's a little easier to find some things and try and finish in the winter and then come back and set a few dates when we found the bounds to hold the ceremony with the other bounds in the spring.
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bradstreet wants to Dan.
Yes, Bill?
Bill Bradstreet, town meeting member, precinct 1. When this is done, will there be a list or a map showing the individual spots that they are going to mark? If you aren't going to walk, but for the general public, if I were to come in, or where are the boundary markers between here and there? You can find one at this street or this corner, or would it be something like that available when this is all completed?
Stephen?
Yeah, so my intention is, with the advent of technology, we take pictures, we GPS track these locations, and then we eventually, we'll put them on a map that the public will be able to see and recognize where the locations are. So obviously this will be a bigger scale map. We'll make sure it's in the online GIS for people to take a look at if they want to look for it and find it.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Dan, may I comment?
yes, please.
That Mr. Bradstreet, and I'm not joking about this, is probably welcome to walk with our professionals and to make sure they don't make any mistakes.
Bring their boots.
Enough, that's all. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
The board will discuss the town manager's fiscal year 2019 evaluation and fiscal year 2020 strategic objectives.
Good night, Bill.
Bear with me a moment.
You gotta find it too. This one said smart on it.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, thank you. So, a week ago Tuesday, I sat with the town manager to discuss his ratings from the Board of Selectmen for the past fiscal year, and his overall score was 4.39, which was
Outstanding.
outstanding. We reviewed the year it passed, the day-to-day operations, long-term strategic planning, his team, the professionalism amongst his staff, the support and respect and trust from the broader community, and we'll say he was proud of the conference. It's been 5 years that he's been with us, and he remains optimistic about the direction we are headed. So, as a follow-up on his meeting, we have a list of items to discuss for 2020 shortly, but we have come to discuss now his salary 2020 survey, which included other communities of similar size, complexity, budget, and governments. And he submitted a list of communities and their average, the population, total budget, bond ratings, whether they have a municipal electric, their base pay, deferred comps, vacation, very intense research project. And the average salary of town managers in similar communities is $219,081 is the average. And we have an estimated salary for Steve of $210,959 on the board for discussion. Board members' comments? David?
Thank you, Dan. The people that I'm probably most conversant with in Danvers are my age group, 70 to 90. And when we grew up, you could buy a new Buick for $3,100, pretty much with everything, well, air conditioning. And initially, the amount paid to a town employee when it's over $200,000 raises a lot of eyebrows. And I think it's important for our attentive citizens to know that the town manager, among other things, is responsible for overseeing the protection of $5 billion worth of real estate. It's astonishing. I looked up to see what the assessed values of properties are in Danvers. And I think, and Steve will know the figure, but I think that there are 750 employees between the school and the non-school employees. And I can also say that other communities smaller than Danvers are paying more. So I'm just saying, when the people tomorrow morning at the pool start, saying to me, how much are you spending on that manager? I'm just going to say, I think it is a very reasonable amount to spend for great quality and the kind of service that we're getting. But I know it sounds like a big number. Well, it is. If you had heart surgery, it would be a big number too. So things are expensive. Good quality management is expensive, but certainly fairly priced. And I support the figures. Oh yeah, and I also want to say, Dan, I don't really enjoy negotiating pay and, confronting people on these matters. They're delicate, they're personal, and the fact is that you undertook it. And I thank you for doing that, because I didn't want to do it, and I think you did a thorough and excellent job.
Thank you. All set? Bill?
I would just simply say that I support the board in its recommendation, and I'm very pleased with the first 5 years that we've had here with Steve. I think we made the right decision 5 years ago, and I hope that we have many more years to come under this dynamic leadership, keeping our town going towards the goals that we have. And there's always plenty of projects out there to add to the menu as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you. Gardner?
Thank you. So I was pleased I knew how I ranked it, and then when I got the sheet with the other rankings, I was pleased to see there is fluctuation among the 5 board members, ranging from 3.5 to 5, which is as high as you can get, on a number of measurements. We also have the ability to individually say what we think is important, and there was a lot of people who talked about the Citizens Academy, which has proven to be very effective and a pretty popular program right now. Mobile library, water, trail expansion, so on and so forth, affordable housing. The end result being the overall score when plugged into our calculations was 4.39, which exceeds expectations. I do know that we then take that number and apply it to a calculation that we had decided long before, which is the management compensation plan, which, based on the management compensation plan, Steve would recommend an increase of 4%. This falls in line with all the other managers in town, who would have achieved the same scoring. And when we looked at the 20-plus towns that were presented, this would bring him below the average. So he would still be below the average. Some towns are larger, some smaller, not considerably. We have 27,558. Some go up to 44,000, 59,000, some as little as 19,000. But it's not just the base pay. They also consider different towns remunerate the town manager with auto allowances or deferred compensation, vacation by other opportunities they've provided to the town managers of those towns. We know about 5 of them have recently been filled within the past 2 or 3 years. We know some are open. It's a competitive marketplace. It's not, it's not that, it's hard to find a good, valuable town manager, and I think that the score reflects the work that Steve has done over the past year and past years, and there's a lot of innovation with change, and I look forward to more coming down the pike. So I'm really comfortable supporting the increase based on the management compensation plan.
Thank you. Can we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move at this time that the board accepts the rating of 4.39, and as such, based on the management compensation plan, offer a 4% increase to the current base salary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts this past year.
It's, it's been an honor to work here. Excuse me. You know, it's exciting to hear at the beginning of the meeting, you know, Andrea talking about the things that Wayne accomplished. The position was created in 1949. It's humbling to be only the 5th person to have this job in Danvers since the position was created. In a profession where the typical tenure is 3 to 5 years, I think Danvers has averaged 15 years for its town managers, and it's been a great place to work, and it's been rewarding to work with this board and to work with the staff and the committees here. So I appreciate your support, and I look forward to switching gears in a moment to talk about some of the things that we want to try to accomplish looking ahead over the next year. So thank you again.
Thank you. Anybody else? All set? All right, let's go on to the next.
I provided a list of items back on October 15th that some of these are continuation of some of the goals that we adopted last year. Just as a reference, the 5 goals that we adopted for fiscal year 2019, among the many projects we're working on, one was to guide the Smith School into construction. The second was to work with the Mass DEP and local partners on the potential for new local well sites. The third was to prepare the zoning for High Street and the Square for a special town meeting in 2019, which is, we're aiming to do that in early 2020. The fourth was to continue to grow the new economic development function. And then the fifth was to work with Rebecca Nurse Homestead and the alarm list on one of the stated goals in the open space plan, which is to preserve that property and protect it. So the list that was provided to you tonight is not in any particular order, although generally speaking, I would suggest that the items at the top of the list are probably higher both in profile and importance from an organizational perspective. But there are some worthy projects on this list for consideration tonight. And as I typically say, regardless of the 5 that the board elects to choose to focus on, everything on this list will continue to be something that the management team and staff is working to accomplish. So with that, I would welcome discussion with the board on what we think the priorities look like through next June.
Bill, your comments and thoughts?
My thoughts?
Yes.
Okay, I think that among the proposed goals, our greatest concentration should be on the stabilization of the new water source. Continue to look into the Rebecca Nurse location if it deems to be physically appropriate and healthy, and if not, there's other places that could also be used within the same aquifer that the town already owns. And beyond that, obviously the contracts all have to be renegotiated, and then the downtown zoning, I think, is very, very important. So those are my key 3 places.
Gardner?
So I'm right on there with Bill. I think some of the ones that were objectives from last year are in flight and moving on their own. So from the goals adopted from fiscal year 2019, I would agree, work with Mass DEP and local partners to explore new well sites, prepare zoning to enhance High Street and Square, explore preservation of Rebecca Nurse. So I think we're the same on those 3, Bill. My others, if I'm going to pull a couple from the list down below, one is work with the staff in the Haybon Recreation we bring back to, and I would change the wording a little bit on this one, but actually to bring it to the 2020 town meeting is good. I would add one that's not on here, and one of my personal ones is to encourage and promote affordable housing opportunities in the town of Danvers. So that's one I would ask for consideration on that. Those would be my 5.
David?
Thank you, Dan. I don't have any particular items to note, except in that this is not a cheap shot at the board or the manager. Spend as little money as possible, because my age group are very, very apprehensive about their survival. So many people are on retirement, fixed income, and every year, legitimately, our taxes increase as our costs increase, and no one wants to reduce the quality and quantity of the various services we have. But to constantly try to give the truth evidence to our people that we are spending as little as possible, that is something that I'm always concerned about, and I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you. So looking at the list on the bottom, kind of my top 5 would be complete feasibility and testing of a well site at Rebecca Nurse Homestead, work with Danvers Alarmless to secure conservation restriction, work towards development of clean energy and climate plan. So I think 1, 2, 3. And work with the key stakeholders, respond and draft a water permit renewal. So energy and water, to my way of thinking, are the most important things for the community, for the region, for the state, that we need to address. Perhaps they can be worked in together somehow, but I really would like to see us put more emphasis on sustaining our water, controlling energy, so that we have a future.
Mr. Chairman, may I make an observation?
Yes.
It appears that the zoning, the well site, and the protection of Rebecca Nurse all have multiple, the support of multiple selectmen.
Yep.
And I would propose that those 3 go above the line, and then negotiating sustainable contracts, water permit, hay barn, clean energy and climate, affordable housing, and frugality all have at least 1 marker. So perhaps setting aside the 3 and then focusing in on the list that had at least some support.
And I would like to hear from our 5th member.
Sure.
Perhaps if you can narrow that list down, and maybe next time we can hash it out. The ones that didn't get any support, just take them out.
And maybe kind of rank them by
Yeah.
who did what, because
Put initials by the particular
Yeah.
items.
I'm a new too. Because I would hold some of these. I understand working with the Danvers Alarmless to secure conservation restriction. It's a worthy cause, but I have a couple others that I think are a higher priority. But that's what's
In
gonna
my
happen.
way of thinking, the testing and the conservation restriction could be tied in as one.
Yeah.
Oh. Mr. Chairman, I didn't realize that we could even consider other additional goals, and I have one that I see is creeping upon us, and that is that we're regressing slowly back to the 1950s with our decentralization of the DPW, and I don't think it's appropriate or efficient. And I think that we ought to be looking more towards the centralization of DPW, all aspects of it, preferably at a single location, so that we could have the efficiencies of use of these departments, just as we have an efficiency with their function in the town, unlike other towns that don't have this efficiency. It's ridiculous to start talking about 5 or 6 locations for the DPW operations centers, and one of them we should all realize is blatantly illegal. It's the one down in Plains Park that has been used for many years in a recreational area for the building maintenance division. I think that decentralizing water and sewer, we had to do it possibly, but that's going back. We used to have decentralized water and sewer on School Street and Lower Hobart Street, and they brought it together at 85 Hobart 70 years ago. So I think that we ought to look at that. I know that many years ago we started to discuss a centralized DPW facility, and Wayne was afraid because of the extreme cost. I used to use the example of what they did in Weston as an excellent example of what we could have here in Danvers. And I think there is potential property that may become available, and this is a goal that I think we should be pursuing. Thank you.
Did you add that, Steve?
I did.
So is it all right with the board that the town manager come back next meeting with a condensed list that we can discuss with all 5 of us?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Selectmen's new business. Any, Gardner, any new business?
No, thank you.
Bill?
No, thank you.
David?
None, thank you.
Thank you. I do have new business, if I may. Pass those down.
Sure.
Pass that down, please. David, enough?
I need one more.
There you go.
Okay.
So, talking about climate change, I'm making a few assumptions. Climate change is happening. Greenhouse gases are contributing to this change. Methane is part of the problem. Natural gas leaks are adding to the problem. Facts. I just passed out a sheet that shows a partial list of the 106 gas leaks in Danvers as of 2017, as disclosed by National Grid. A lot of them are downtown, in my neighborhood and David's neighborhood.
And right here, Dan.
Yes, right here, yes. National Grid reported 62 gas leaks in Salem, but an independent study found 232 gas leaks in Salem. The state only requires gas companies to disclose the number of leaks. There is no mandate by the state that gas companies repair the leaks. Gas leaks pose a health concern and problem, and our Board of Health agreed with me on that. What's the solution? Ask the state legislature to pass a law requiring gas companies repair and stop gas leaks in our communities. It's costing us, the ratepayers, $80 million a year and lost gas. I'd rather pay to fix the leak rather than have the gas go up in the air, contributing to a greenhouse gas effect. Upon research, there are 2 bills filed, one in the House, 2828, an act to modernize natural gas lines. Senate 2012, to reduce gas leaks with fines attached. Both of the bills are pretty much the same language. So I'm asking this board if you would support me sending a letter to our state representative, state senator, to support the 2 bills, 2828 and 2012. Any discussion, conversation, thoughts?
Sounds very sensible to me, and I certainly support that request, and I'm glad you're making it, Dan.
Thank you.
I too support it.
Thank you.
I too support it and think it's kind of interesting because just this week in our packet, we received this mailing from
Yes.
National Grid.
I laughed.
And I have been looking at a potential gas leak on the front of my property for the last 50 or 60 years, and I've got graphic examples of 3 trees that were planted all at the same time, and same variety of tree, and the tree nearest where the gas leak, I think, is about 1/3 the size of the other 2. Plus, we had a huge pine tree that died at the same location. And back when my father was alive, he used to say there was a gas leak out there at this gate that happens to be in front of my new stand. And I'm going to, as a result of this and as your work, I'm going to be calling this little number, 800 number, and see if they'll come down and look and see if there is in fact a gas leak there, because it is definitely affected 3 trees that have grown in that area. At least one of them has been very much dwarfed because of it. And I know they're happening, it's all over the place.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll do that. Okay, back onto the agenda. Town manager will report to the board on various items of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few updates for you tonight. The first, you received a copy of a letter in your packets this week. It was a letter that went out to the community after the storm event that we had on October 17th. I believe the Light Board is also planning to convey similar sentiments, perhaps the same letter through the electric bills. But some of the, we really had it was a sort of an unprecedented event. We had a lot of long-time, town employees, 30 years of experience, who said that they had never seen anything like that, what happened to Danvers a couple weeks ago. I was in a meeting last week with the director of the Middleton Electric Light Department. He said that, they had 35 or 40 customers without power at one point, and we had 2/3 of town without power at one point. 4 of the 6 major circuits in town were affected or down at one point, and it was really 2 weeks straight, staff getting things restored. In the early days, sort of working around the clock to get things back online. I asked David Lane to prepare for me some preliminary cost estimates for what we went through. We're still waiting on a number of invoices from some of the contractors that came in to support the town. We had outside support from Mayor Tree, from Fraser out of Peabody, and the Middleton Electric Light Department actually sent some trucks to assist us too. I think when all is said and done, we're looking at around a $200,000 storm event in terms of the response. To put that in context, we budget based on 3- and 5-year averages around $800,000 each year for our storm operations during the winter. So if this were a single event, it would have eaten a quarter of our annual snow budget. The nature of this event, 3/4 of the costs was really borne by the electric department based on the nature of the damage that occurred, but there's still a significant impact across the departments. But really, the cost aside, it's I think that the divisions sort of exemplified why we have having electric and forestry and equipment and streets and grounds and working collaboratively as divisions of the town, we're able to respond to things like this in a professional and efficient and safe way. And I think the response that we got via phone calls and on social media from the community really reflected that. I think there was certainly some frustration, and I think that's expected when folks are going 2 or 3 days without power. But a lot of support for the work that the crews did to get things back online. So I wanted to provide a copy of that letter with you, or to you, and just mention in passing where we are. And I know I shouldn't say it, but it's looking like Friday may be more rain than snow, which is good news. And that's the last you'll hear from me all year on weather forecast. My track record is not great. Just briefly, the finance director and I had an opportunity on October 26th to attend the annual Town Finance Committee meeting at Bridgewater. We were invited to talk about how to prepare for a credit rating. I think we were invited in part because of the town's recent upgrade. We had a good turnout for the session. I will note Paul Pollack made the drive out and attended the workshop. He did not attend our workshop because I think he's tired of hearing us talk about it. It was interesting to me, though, pretty early on in our session, the audience they were much less interested in hearing about credit ratings and much more surprised and shocked as we described how all of our departments work together collaboratively, whether it be the schools or the electric department, and the cooperation and support, cross boards, school committee supporting the selectmen and vice versa. So I think they were more interested in learning how to do that than they were how to prepare for a credit rating. But it was a good experience. Briefly, you've probably seen the flyers and the outreach on Saturday morning. This coming Saturday morning on the 9th at 9 o'clock. There will be a public forum at Endicott Park. We'll be having a presentation in the carriage house on the work that's been done by the Hay Barn Committee. There will also be a sort of a group activity to discuss what's been put together, along with a tour of the site to look at some of the features that are being considered, and then a Q&A session as well. We'll be providing, the Science Center will be open at that time, so we're hoping that, families with kids, if the parents want to come and learn about the project, we can have the kids, pop into the Science Center and do some activities there with staff. But we're hoping to get a good turnout for that event to hear the same presentation that the board heard at their last meeting. We have Veterans Day on November 11th, and I thank you. The chair has agreed to come and offer remarks. That's an honor that's bounced back and forth over the years between the town manager and the chair, and I think the council is pleased that the chair will be there this year to make remarks at Thorpe School at 11 o'clock on Veterans Day. And then you did receive a copy of an analysis that I put together at our last meeting. Bob Kamer came before this board and offered comments that were similar in nature to some of the comments we heard during the budget process this year, which was to take a look at the stipends that are provided to the selectmen for their work. I did attach to that memorandum some of the information that we were able to pull from similarly sized communities, as well as some of our geographic partners. And as noted in this memorandum, I think the data supports an adjustment. It's been many years since that stipend was evaluated. And my recommendation going into the fiscal year 21 budget would be that the board direct and allow me to increase the stipends to $4,500 for the chair and $4,000 for the other members. And then we can handle that through the budget process as we would for any other line item in the budget.
So if I make a comment, 40 years ago, $3,000 would require $10,609 today for the same purchase power. So that's through with inflation. So, Steve, I appreciate doing that research, and I think that recommendation, if the board agrees, is appropriate. David?
Can I just have, I don't know, Steve, if you're able to do that. I know this, that the Boston City Council voted to raise its salary, and they got in all kinds of trouble, court fights, ethics commission, because you can't vote your own pay as a public official.
Well,
I don't know if you can give it to us.
You're on solid ground, because the budget that gets presented to the board on March 1st has to be balanced, and the board would then pass that budget on to the finance committee and the town meeting. So ultimately, town meeting would have to approve the budget. So there's no issue including that in the draft budget, in the proposed budget, because ultimately it would require town meeting action.
But thanks you for your willingness to pay us more, but that was nice.
And just I have two other quick items. First, you also received a copy of a letter in your packets from Richard Rowell. He was a local lobsterman who approached the board in the summer, inquiring whether the town would consider trap storage for small commercial fishermen like himself. Staff from engineering, planning, recreation, our director of open space and natural resources worked together. We did come up with an option in the parking area at LaBelle's Grove, which is an underutilized site right now. And we went and walked the site with Rich. At this point, it's not an ideal location, so he is looking around to see what other options he has. But I wanted to share his letter. He was appreciative of the effort and said he would get back to us, knowing that this is an option that he still has for consideration. And then finally, you received hard copies today, but I forwarded the PDFs of the transportation vision that the North Shore Coalition has been working on for quite some time. And again, thank you to the chair for attending the forum that was held at Salem State University last Friday. With a strong showing from our North Shore delegation, and the vision that you received. It includes a statement, but more importantly, guiding principles and goals, and most importantly, a list of action items that each of the 18 members of the North Shore Coalition are committing to try to accomplish over the next couple of years. We are already actively working on, by my count, 6 of the 19 that are laid out there. This is important. I think we all recognize the struggles that we have with getting people from point A to point B, not only from the North Shore into Boston, but even across the region, sort of the east-west last mile connectors. And it's something that, you know, the MAPC, the MMA, the legislature is certainly aware of this. At the local level, the planning directors from, you know, the 4 communities of our sub-region, being Danvers, Salem, Peabody, and Beverly, are working together on. And so this is really sort of an affirmative statement, and I think it's meant to put you know, sometimes it's the really large projects, whether it be, you know, improvements to the South Station or new light rail stations, but there are a lot of other things we need to be thinking about and doing to improve the little things, whether that's, you know, creating local transit systems to get a couple of cars off the road and get people onto shuttles that are already making trips across the region. So this is something I think, you know, happy to have conversations one-on-one about what's in here. But I think you'll be hearing more about this as we start to, you know, get deeper into the zoning that we're talking about for February and beyond. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just comment, it was well-attended, that meeting, and a lot of support from the North Shore Legislative Delegation on the big picture. And I think a lot of what we discussed, or was discussed that night or morning, the MBTA Financial Board kind of adopted at their meeting the other day. So it seems like the state is actually moving in the same direction in many cases, which is unusual. Correspondence, previous new public business updates. Bill?
And I see that it's the consent calendar is also in this section of the
Yep.
agenda. I have a concern that I expressed last year, and I hope that it can be conveyed to the High 5 EM second annual turkey chase. It's Sunday at 8 a.m., beginning and ending at Hobart Street parking lot. Just to remember that a good portion of that parking lot on Sunday morning is reserved for the Maple Street Church. And I don't want us to forget that, because they were the major player in having the town afford to be able to pick that up and have it converted to a parking lot.
Joe, do they have a permit?
They have actually permission from the church. The church is aware, and they've got a line of communication with the church. And actually, the applicant wanted to advance the start time, to push the start time back to 9 o'clock. And with that, we would have required her to come back before the board because of the change in time where the rules and regulations of the event stay the same. That's why it appears on the consent calendar. But everything that was in place last year is in place this year.
And while we're on the consent calendar, we have the Friends of the Hawthorne 5K Walk, May 17th. Is on this consent calendar?
That is a repeat event.
Okay. Seems a little early, but all right. Thank you. Bill, anything else?
Oh, no.
Okay. David, correspondence, new business?
Is this the time for closing comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I would just ask people to be aware that in this country, there are some thousands of judges and court personnel, police, prosecutors, district attorneys, and United States attorneys, etc., who are constantly working every day to maintain the rule of law in a society which has gone litigation crazy at the national level, with cases dumped into court that are like the most complicated cases drawn up by the most complicated lawyers. And I'm getting older, and I've been a lawyer for 51 years. But without the rule of law, there can be no justice. And without justice, there can be no peace. And there's not a lot of peace going around lately, despite all the hard work that the well-intentioned judges and court personnel and law enforcement people are trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Gardner?
I have no comments.
Thank you.
Would you like to move the consent calendar before you final
Please,
comments?
yeah, go ahead.
I move we accept the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. So I have a number of correspondence. I'll start with, I have an invitation for a ribbon cutting at the vocational school. And the invitation comes from the Massachusetts Society of the Prevention of Cruelty of Animals, MSPCA, not from the school, not from the superintendent, which kind of caused me to question it, but Melissa Gallagher, I guess they're supporting a new program for the kids up there, but I would have thought the school would have reached out to Danvers Selectmen to invite them, but it came from the MS. Do you know anything about it, Steve?
I've not seen the invitation.
I'll forward it to you tomorrow.
I'm going to go, and I responded to that. I'm assuming that Heidi, the director up there, knows everything that is going on.
Oh, she's speaking.
Oh, yeah, so I plan to attend.
I'll see you there.
Yeah, oh, good.
Good, yep, but again, we don't get much communication from the school, and it just an odd invitation.
I often remind the director and others that we spend more than $2 million a year contributing to the overall welfare of the school, so pay attention to Danvers people.
So talking about Danvers Cares is having a TIPS training for intervention procedures. It's free for Danvers businesses on December 3rd, 9 to 3 at the library. And the chief has graciously agreed to let his officers drop these off at various locations so that they're aware of it. And it is free. So, for a grant that Danvers Cares has. And I think there's some people that could take advantage of that. We got a letter that was sent to the town manager from Mass DOT concerning the 128 project that will be completed within 1,789 calendar days from the receipt of the notice to proceed. I don't know my math, what is that, 5 years? Amazing. But it does say they look forward to working with us on this important transportation project. Steve, at some point in time, can you tell us what that means?
Mm-hmm.
How they'll work with us, how they'll explain it to the folks, and how they'll help us get from point A to B? I had a phone call from a resident of Water Street, very concerned, very upset about the High Street, Purchase Street interchange. She's so concerned that somebody's going to be injured, the road rage from people traveling in the left lane on High Street over the yellow line to get to the light at Purchase Street and cut in front of everybody. So my question is, we don't have a left-hand only arrow in the street. Now, it's granted the left-hand turn is after the overpass, but can there be something there to indicate that that lane is for left-hand turns only? Many intersections have a left-hand arrow painted in the street. If that was there, then I think it would give the police the opportunity to enforce it.
If I can ask for clarity, Mr. Chairman, when you say you're going to take a left on a Purchase, that means you're coming from
No,
Beverly
you're on
Hills.
High Street, heading east.
Okay,
So I was sitting in traffic on the right-hand lane,
okay,
and the traffic's
Got it.
passing me on the left, and
you're right,
3 out of 5 cars cut in front of the traffic.
got it, I understand.
And there is no left-hand arrow only. I don't know
But
if that
on
would-
High Street, taking a left onto Purchase, you're,
No, that's a right onto Purchase. But if you're taking a left onto 128,
oh, okay,
okay?
I know what you mean,
Right.
thank you.
It's at that first light at the Purchase Street intersection, or they do it at the second light. Every day,
Okay.
right. So just maybe something we can do. And this lady that called me, she said it was much better the time the lights were all out because of the power outage. Everybody was very courteous that day. Lastly, November 11th is Veterans Day. Please remember to thank the veterans, current veterans, and veterans that served previously. And if that's okay with you, we can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Yep. Good night, Danvers. Thank you.